What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Johnny. Back in here with one more reaction video. Today we switching it up a little bit, but we got a very, very informational interview from 1961. Martin Luther King. I've never seen this interview before. It's something that you don't hear from mainstream TV. You know, I always say, man, growing up from school and TV, you would think the only thing Martin Luther King ever did was "I Have a Dream" speech and walked and marched and got shot. You don't hear nothing else about the other side of him. So we here to just dig a little bit. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Get yourself on in here. You know, the goal is to reach 1 million subscribers and start 1 million conversations. But if we can reach 100 million people and start 100 million thought-provoking conversations, I'm a firm believer we can kill a lot of narratives in today's world. We're just spirits encased in human flesh, trying to figure out this thing called life. So if you like what you hear in this video, please share it far and wide.
Dr. King, the most unexpected thing about you, to me, is that for a long time you've been a national leader of your people. You're one of the most influential figures, I suppose, in the United States, and yet you're only 32 years old. Now, did you have any special training for this kind of leadership when you were a boy?
No, I really didn't. I had no idea that I would be catapulted into a position of leadership in the civil rights struggle in the United States. I went through the discipline of early elementary school education and then high school and college and theological training, but never did I realize that I would be in a situation where I would be a leader in what is now known as the civil rights struggle of the United States.
And I want to pause that right there. There never should have been one leader for the civil rights struggle. Because if you look at today, we're still looking for the government. We're still looking for Barack Obama. We didn't understand when the civil rights movement was happening that the next step was to remove the fathers out of home. We don't need leaders of our community. We need fathers, and every man needs to be the father of his home and raise his children properly.
What sort of home did you have as a child? Was it a strict home, for instance?
Well, I guess it was a relatively strict coming up
right now
in a minister's home. I faced the discipline that you would face and a very fervent religious background.
Now, how many kids are getting disciplined right now? And that's not knocking single mothers, but we have to address the elephant in the room. 80% of black children come from single-parent homes. 37% of white children are now coming from single-parent homes. You cannot get me to, remotely for a second, to say that men just don't want to raise their fathers. If we want to abolish something, let's abolish the family court system. Let's abolish child support. Because we see what the results are of children growing up without their fathers decade after decade. We need families if we're going to fix this thing around. I had 2 children, my boys, 6 and 7 years old. Their mother lived in Dallas, Texas. They've been with me the last 6 months. Their behavior is 1,000,000% different. Everything they're doing, the way they're talking, the way they're walking. They make their beds first thing in the morning when they wake up. Iron sharpens iron. And though I had a great mother, everything that you see sitting in front of you on this camera today is because of my father, my grandfather, and my coaches around me who all believed in me and gave me supreme confidence that I can do anything. I was never told that I couldn't accomplish something because of my skin color.
However, I don't think it was over strict to the point that I developed any personality conflict.
Yeah, you need strictness
as a result of
I needed my daddy.
Early childhood, but it was strict enough, and I think it was strict enough for me to develop certain disciplinary principles as I came up.
Kids aren't inherently violent. The homicide rate, the carjackings, all of that stuff, man. You put some strong men around these boys. That's why I think in Detroit they had that dad program where all the dads showed up and the school fighting stopped and all that. Until we acknowledge that masculinity is a good thing, we're going to keep watching the youth deteriorate because they have no way to express that energy.
Well, now, when you were still a small boy, before those decisions came along, were you conscious of color discrimination in your own life?
Yes, I became conscious of color discrimination at a relatively early age. I think the first time was when I was about 6 years old. I had some friends who lived, well, they didn't live in front of us, but their parents had a store, two white boys, and they were my inseparable playmates for the early years of my life. And I remember when I was about 6, something started happening. When I went over to play with them, they always made excuses. They could not play, they were busy. And finally, I went to my mother with this problem, and she tried to explain to me in the best way she could explain to a child 6 years old. And
now you have to imagine, how do these white children go from having a black kid as a best friend to no longer wanting to play with him? The kids didn't develop that concept on their own. It was from the adults. I've always said, man, kids are cool. Adults are the problem. I worked at a private school the last 6 years. Kids really don't care about skin color. Not one of those kids were upset that I was a black teacher at a private school covered in tattoos. They thought it was pretty dope, honestly. But we had adults and we had parents that felt a certain way. And so I agree with that concept that if we want to advance society, we need a lot of adults to become more open-minded. My skin color has nothing to do with how far I can go in life. And we need to stop pushing that narrative to the world.
this was really the first time that I became aware of the racial differences, or rather the racial problem. She made it clear to me that this system had a long history, dating back to the time of slavery. She tried to explain the meaning of the system of segregation.
What I hate that gets left out of all this information when we talk about segregation and Jim Crow and slavery is we always overlook the Democratic Party. We always go to white America was racist. And if we can accomplish anything, let's hold the Democrats accountable for their past sins. If I did some dirt 10 years ago, it don't matter how much an evolved man, Christian I am, I still got to pay for what I owe. Democrats are responsible for all the atrocities that Martin Luther King is speaking about. Now, do we have the compromise of 1877? Yeah, we could talk about that. But right now, we're going to talk about who was in charge of the segregation, the Jim Crow, and all that. Who disenfranchised those 200 Republican senators out of power?
But the thing I would always remember is that in the midst of her explanation, she always said to me, you must never feel that you are less than anybody else.
Never. Ain't that crazy that Martin Luther King said you must never feel that you are less than someone else, and Black Lives Matter is running around talking about white supremacy? No one is supreme over me, bro. God, that's it. I am greatness. And I challenge everyone, no matter what color you are, if you're watching this video, man, believe in yourself. You need to have unrealistic confidence in yourself. You can do anything. You can accomplish anything. Fake consistency and hard work. No matter where you come from, we all can make it to the top.
You must always feel that you are somebody, and you must feel that you are as good as anybody else. And, of course, this came up with me in spite of the fact that I still confronted the system of segregation every day.
I made this song in 2 minutes using my MIDI pack.
And that's today's society. Nothing's changed.
Was that a violent conflict in your life? If you really believed your mother and yet the system around you suggested that this wasn't true, it must have set up some sort of strain.
Yes, I think so. As I look back over those early days, I did have something of an inattention. On the one hand, my mother taught me that I should feel a sense of somebodyness. On the other hand, I had to go out and face a system which stared me in the face every day saying, you are less than, you are not equal to. So this was a real tension within.
And let's not forget, Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. So has anything really changed with the Democrat Party?
Now, out of your own personal experience, the only example you've given me so far is one family where the mother didn't too much care to have you play with her children. What were you really prevented from doing as a child that a white child might have done?
Well, in my days in Atlanta as a child, there was a pretty strict system of segregation. For instance, I could not use the swimming pool, so that for a long, long time I could not go in swimming until the YMCA was built, a Negro YMCA, and they had a swimming pool there. But certainly a Negro child in Atlanta could not go to any public park. I could not go to the so-called white schools. There were separate schools. And I attended a high school in Atlanta, which was the only high school for Negroes in the city. And this was a real problem because in Atlanta there are more than 200,000 Negroes.
Pause this. And this is where I have an issue with the NAACP, the Congressional Black Caucus, and all that. The NAACP was founded in 1908. That's a fact. You can look that up. They've been fundraising forever. Manning Johnson, a man who wrote the book Color, Communism, and Common Sense, talked about in the 30s, he started paying attention and said, hold on, we raising all this money. Why we ain't building no black hospitals? Why we not building black schools? Why we not building black parks? What are we doing? Where is all this money going? And as we know, in the past year, Black Lives Matter just raised $90 million. And nothing has changed at all in the average inner city. This is a hustle that's been going on forever. And I feel personally that Martin Luther King had good intentions. I think all of us do. But these organizations, the NAACP, the Black Lives Matter, the Congressional Black Caucus, they all have ulterior motives. And it's not to uplift the individual people. It's to keep the racists fighting. As they said, they don't want peace. They want a war. And so we, the people, have to understand that we aren't really beefing with the neighbors. Yeah, that white mother doesn't want her kids playing with these black kids, but that's because of propaganda she's seeing on TV. Everyone's brainwashed. That's why I've always said that narrative of the masses of America has always been racist. The masses of America has always done what the media has told them to do. Most people don't think for themselves, unfortunately. And that's why I say everyone thinks, but no one thinks. Because if you did, you wouldn't grab a lot of the concepts.
In many of the stores downtown, to take another example, I could not go to a lunch counter to buy a hamburger, a cup of coffee, or something like that.
And this is where everything has to be from perspective. And I would love for people in the comments to let me know what they think. But America has always been about ownership. And America has always had the Second Amendment. And I'm a firm believer that we should have just been starting our own businesses. Everyone wants to talk about, Black Wall Street was burned down. It was built back a second time. But you know what killed Black Wall Street the second time? Integration. Because we stopped buying with our own people. Right now, you got a ton of players complaining that the NFL is slavery. Why don't you go start your own football league? Vince McMahon did it. Why don't you go start your own basketball league? And America is the land of opportunity. So stop complaining and crying about what someone else has and go create your own. There are so many millionaires and billionaires in America. And I'm not talking about in the 60s back when my guy Martin was mobbing through the streets. But in 2020, there's no excuse why we can't go out and create anything we want. There's no bank that's going to turn down LeBron James or turn down Oprah.
I could not attend any of the theaters. Only there were one or two Negro theaters.
Magic Johnson now owns his own movie theater.
They were very small, but they did not get the main pictures. If they got them, they were 2 years late or 3 years late.
And this is why I say the downside of the civil rights movement and what the Democrats have done to the majority of not just black Americans, but Americans in general, is they've made you feel like the government owes you something, that the government needs to take care of you. And so with this concept right here is there's no Negro movie theaters, there's no Negro schools. The government needs to give them to us. Oh, we're going to give them to you, all right. And we're going to put this critical race theory in there, and we're going to educate the teachers. We're going to come up with all the policies. And now these aren't schools to enlighten you and uplift you. There are many government indoctrination camps.
So that by and large, there was a very strict system of segregation, and there was nothing called racial integration at that time in Atlanta. But the thing I would always remember is that in the midst of her explanation, she always said to me, you must never feel that you are less than anybody else. You must always feel that you are somebody, and you must feel that you are as good as anybody else.
And what is Black Lives Matter teaching you? That you're less than, that you can't be this because you're black. What is critical race theory teaching you? That you're just inherently slaves and your history started at 1619. Don't accept someone else's narrative. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, you are destined for greatness, but you got to believe it. Like, you got to believe in yourself. Faith, consistency, and hard work, anything can be accomplished. But the system wants us fighting at each other. It wants me to think that every white man is my enemy. And I know that's not true. I know that humans are humans. Black, white, yellow, green, blue, brown, red. Everything is for government manipulation and control. The gay versus straight argument. The vax versus unvax. Choice versus pro-choice. It's all divide and conquer. Stop letting someone else manipulate your emotions. I like to go down rabbit holes like this because we need to hear other sides of Martin Luther King, about his life, about his childhood. He speaks about how he grew up in a disciplined home. We know that's lacking from today's society. But we also have to address the flaws that we're missing. You know, I say the worst thing about the civil rights movement is that there was no checks and balances. No one went 30 years later and said, all right, let's go look back at this thing. This was good. That was bad. Let's take that part out. Let's change this. Oh, that was terrible. We just keep adding government policies on top of government policies. And the inner cities are just guinea pigs for these liberal ideas. The prosecutors are letting criminals back out and homicide rates are going through the roof. My grandfather told me when I was a kid that you can't have equal rights without equal responsibilities. And you're a walking resume, whether you like it or not. The minute you open your mouth, you let people know who you are. So I challenge everyone to change the way that you present yourself. Because when the lights is on, it's time to shine. And though Tupac was a very intellectual young man and had a lot of positive ideas for his community, if you listen to his music right now, he seemed like he was just another violent, reckless individual. And he's not here to defend himself. Nor is Nipsey Hussle. Nor is Young Dolph, as great as these individuals were. So change the energy that you're putting out to the world so you can change the energy that you're receiving back from the world. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Keep studying, keep learning, keep growing. Until next time, we out. Peace.